Hey everyone, welcome back. Sorry I've been gone so long. Life has been crazy, but I'm super happy to sit down and get back to making a video that I've been really thinking about a lot the past month. And something that several of you have been asking about, which is how to approach CTFs, methodology to use. So for that, I've made this set of slides we're going to go through and talk about things today. So CTF methodology. What is a methodology? Methodology is basically going to be your system for approaching a task. Now in this video we're going to specifically focus on CTFs, which is going to be different if you're going to be doing bug bounties, red teaming, or anything like that. Each of these areas have their own methodologies, own type of things you need to think about. Now there are 3 parts for the methodology that I use, and it's a cyclical system, which means it goes in a circle. And the first phase is going to be recon. As any good methodology, recon is your first thing. Now, I have some slides where we'll go down into things to do in these different phases. We'll get to that in just a little bit. I just want to go through them real quick. Next phase is going to be exploit. This is where you take things that you find in recon after doing research. You usually find exploits that are in the wild that are known about, and you actually execute them to either gain access to the machine, gain a foothold to it, to do whatever you need to. Third, we evaluate. After our exploit is done, we evaluate. Where are we? What do we have access to? What are permissions for the user account that we're in? Things like that. And then we go right back into recon. Oftentimes in CTFs, you've got multiple flags that you need to get, and that's why this turns into a cycle system. Now for me, there's a phase 1 and phase 2 part. Phase 1 is when you're first approaching the box and you're getting your first foothold or your first exploit on the machine. And after that, when you come back into recon, phase 2 starts, and that's the part that just keeps repeating until you get all your targets, all your flags. So recon, first phase. This is going to be things like in-map scan, directory scan, website walkthrough, version research. Hopefully by this time, you've done enough, you understand what an in-map scan and directory scans are and why they're so important. And both of these can feed into version research, letting you know what to go look for. So can a website walkthrough. And that is the one thing that I notice a lot of people skip or don't really know how to do when they're new to CTFs. Website walkthrough, I would argue, is just as critical as an in-map scan, if sometimes not more critical. Because as you're walking through a website, you want to click on the links. You want to see, is there anywhere that you can input things? Is there a place where you can put comments, where you can send a contact field, where you can upload files in the URL? Are they using parameters? Can you mess with those parameters? Things like that. Is there a login page? Website walkthrough can be really crucial on helping you to figure out what it is you may need to look at for an exploit. Version research. I'm actually surprised to come across how many people have a hard time with this. Version research, vulnerability research, is really not that hard to get started. It can be kind of hard to figure out what vulnerability it is you need to try. Yes, I'll grant that. But getting started isn't. Let's take Apache, right? Scanning a box, see it's got a website up and it's running Apache. You go to Google, you put in, my hands are right, you put in Apache, the version number that Nmap showed you, and the word vulnerability or exploit. Hit enter. That is really all you need to do to get started on looking for exploits. And that's where version research, vulnerability research comes into play and really sets you up for the next part of this cycle, which is the exploit phase. Here again, like I said, user input exploits, which can either be like login fields, comment fields, contact us pages. There's things you could potentially do in each of those. SQL injections, cross-site scripting, payload uploads, different types of things. The version exploit, that can work, like especially with WordPress sites, right? You've got themes, you've got plugins. Okay, what about the versions of those can you exploit? URL exploits. The parameters in the URL, can you do anything with them? That's where you get your local file inclusions, stuff like that. Upload file exploits. Can you edit a file? Can you upload a file? Can you point and redirect to a file? That's the type of things that you would want to look for. And API exploits. During your directory and Nmap scans, and your website crawls especially, you come across something that points to an API. There is an innumerable amount of things you can do in the exploit phase, all depending on what services are running. So just take your time in your research, make a list of options, and then go and execute them and see what lands. Then we got the evaluate phase. Now, predominantly here, the stuff I have is for when you gain a reverse shell on the machine, which won't always happen. right? Sometimes when you do an exploit, you get a page set up that you can pass a command perimeter to, so you can execute commands, right? So you can gather information that way. And sometimes that you can use that to lead to a reverse shell. But either way, some of the questions you want to think about is, what user am I? What do I have access to directly with where my connection is? So if you got a remote shell to a machine, you just type ls if you're on a Linux machine, or dir if you're on Windows. What can you see? Is there a flag where you're at? Is there any most flags for the machine? Most of the time, most of these boxes have 2, 3, or 4 flags. Where am I at on the machine? That's something that a lot of people tend to not think about. Most of the time, when it comes to websites on Linux machines, when you gain a remote shell, you'll often be in the var www HTML. So this part focuses on, okay, where am I at on this machine, and what can I see immediately around me? It's kind of like, think if you walk into a room for the first time, right? You take a look at your surroundings. Are there tables? Are there chairs? Are there other people? Is there food? Is there drink? Are there books? Like, what's in this room? What can I do? It's kind of what you're doing in this evaluation phase, just trying to get an understanding of what's in front of you, so to say. Then once you kind of have a grasp on where you're at in the machine and what you have access to, then we cycle into the second phase, recon. There's a ton of stuff you can do here. These are just some of the things that I typically like to look for. First thing is I always typically check the home directory. Now, you can cat out the password file, the shadow file, and see about users that way. But I like to go and check the home directory, see if I have access to it. Because then if I see users in there, well, one, is the user I'm currently at have a folder in there? Or can I access other users' folders in there? Do any of the users have a .ssh file? Do they have keys? Can I write 2 files in that folder myself and add my own keys? It's things I like to look for. The sudo-l command, super helpful. And often is usually the first thing I do when I get a new user, just to see if I can run the sudo command and what options I have. Search for SUID and SGID. If you don't know what these are, make a note to go look it up and to study these. It stands for Sticky User ID and Sticky Group ID. These are extremely helpful when doing CTFs. In fact, when I was doing a job interview, they gave me a vulnerability box to attack and to make a walkthrough for. How I got to root was searching for an SUID. Nmap, of all things, had it set. So as a low privileged user, I was able to run Nmap and get a shell as root through Nmap, which you can do. That was interesting. I actually did not know you could do that until I came across that. And again, when you're looking at these and you list out all the applications and stuff that have these set, it takes time and practice to learn what to look for, to understand what's common, to know kind of what's not that common or really rare to see, and those are the things you typically want to focus on. Again, experience comes into play there. Cron jobs. Another thing, if you don't know what they are, make a note to go read about them and research it after this. Cron jobs on Linux are basically the way for users and admins to automate tasks that they want to run over and over and over again. Windows has its own version of this, and basically sometimes you can gain access to that list and see what's running and who's running it. And you can see what's running and who's running as. Sometimes you can't. That's where the thing underneath it, task, comes into play. Can you watch the tasks that are running? Can you run the top command? Can you utilize ps-aux to go through what's currently running, take pictures of it, and see if anything new runs, see if anything changes, stuff like that. Configuration files. Where you landed at in the web server. Are there configuration files for it? Sometimes they'll have passwords that can either be user passwords on the machine or be database passwords on the machine. Do they point to, kind of ties into the next thing, is there anything that points to a local port that's listening? If you don't know, you can run the netstat command with a couple of options and list out ports that are listening locally. There's a service running on them. They're open for a connection, but only from the local machine. Things like that. Again, experience, note-taking comes into play big time in this phase. So once you have a picture of what's available to you, what you can do, what some of the options are, then you can start moving into your next exploit phase, which more often than not, your next move is going to fall into one of these 4 categories. Can you escalate to root? Do you need to laterally move to another user? Can you use something to read a file with elevated privileges? There's been several boxes that I've been able to use tools locally on the machine to read the root flag without ever becoming root, and then connect to those local services that you enumerated with netstat and see what you can do with them. Now the first 2, pretty much self-explanatory, right? Read files, that one's interesting. So for all three of these, if you haven't come across a website yet, I'll leave a link down in the description. Pull it up, bookmark it. It's called gtfobins.com. Absolutely great resource. It documents so many applications on Linux machines and how you can use them to gain root access if you can run sudo, how you can read files with them if that's an option. And there's just so many things that site has. It's really worth your time to go through and look at. Connect to local services. More often than not, the biggest one you're going to see here is either an internal website that can only be accessed through the local machine, so you'll have to learn about port forwarding and be able to really access it, or a SQL database or a non-SQL database. Those are going to be the two biggest things you're going to come across. And there, if you're not familiar with SQL or no SQL, most of the time it's going to be SQL, a type of SQL, I should say. Could be a MariaDB or something like that. There are resources out there that you can go and learn at. One of my favorites for learning a lot of stuff is w3schools.com. I'll leave a link to it in the description. Programming languages, SQL stuff, HTML code. You can learn a lot from that site, and it's all free, and it's great. I absolutely love it. But basically, this phase sets you up to whether you're going to need to continue or not, depending on what you can do in this phase. And to figure that out, that's where we go into our evaluation second phase. Again, what user am I? Did I successfully pivot to root, or did I laterally move to a user successfully? Do I have a flag? Like I said, some boxes have 3 or 4, some only have 2. So after your pivot, did you find another flag? Are there any more flags or targets to go after? And where am I at on the machine? Again, that's so important, especially if you laterally move to another user. What all can that user see in their home directory? And it starts to cycle back into recon again. What do they have access to? What sudo commands can they use? What cron jobs can they see? Stuff like that. And that's why the system ends up being a cyclical system, depending on how many targets you're going after, how many flags you're going after. So, there it is. Summed up, easy version of the methodology that I use, that I've developed over time. And I really want to encourage you to take this, to work with it, try it out, and to change, add, take away from it, make it your own. Because at the end of the day, that's the biggest thing. There is no one-size-fits-all methodology. Depending on what you're doing in cybersecurity is how big your methodology needs to be, how many steps to it, or how little it is. CTF, thankfully, we can have the smallest one. But at the end of the day, your methodology needs to be your own. You can start with this one, or if there's someone else out there that you find that you like their methodology, start with it. But you're going to find out that you need to customize it to you and what your strengths are. I'm patient, and I like to really understand what it is I'm working with and what my options are. That's why the evaluate phase is one of the more important phases to me, to kind of see where my foothold is. And then I can begin my next recon phase, looking for what I have access to, what my options are for pivoting, for escalation, stuff like that. I can't say it enough to take your time in each of these phases, especially the recon phase. Don't just run automated tools. Don't just manually go through everything. You're going to miss both. Now, there are going to be people saying, well, you need to do things manually so you understand things. And I 100% agree with that. You really need to understand what's going on. Like, Nmap's a great tool, but do you know what open and filtered really mean? Do you understand that Nmap in its normal state just runs for TCP connections? Do you know how to run UDP connections? Do you know the difference between those two? There's tools for crawling websites, and I've used them, and they're good. But I still prefer to do it manually alongside those tools if I use them, because I can gain insight from both, because sometimes a crawler can find links that I miss. Of course, that also plays into your directory scanning. It can find things that are hidden and you may not see, and I keep hitting my mic. But really, being a CTF player and anything in general, really, in cybersecurity, is a balance between automation tools and manual. Automation tools are great. They're useful, but they can make person lazy and prevents them from really understanding what's going on. So even if you're using a tool, try to understand what it is the tool's doing. How does it work? Why does it work? Not saying you've got to learn the code it's in, the code language it's in, and be able to read its code base. That's not what I'm saying. Going back to Nmap. How does it do its test? How does it determine that a port's open? How is it able to get the version? Do you know what banner grabbing is? Hacking is not something you can just bull rush into in a week and become a master hacker. There's no one that can do that. It is something that you've got to dedicate yourself to. And it's going to take time and experience. Things will get easier over time. But one of the biggest things, especially if you're starting out, is to have patience and to take notes. Don't just take notes on the boxes you're doing. Build a master notes as well. So there was a switch in NetMap that I had to use on this box to reveal something. Put that in your master notes about that switch and what it is and what it does. Hey, I found this exploit for this version. Okay, well, in your master notes list under web services, put the service, Apache, whatever version, whatever service it is, and the CVE for the exploit and a little note about it. So that way in the future, you do another box, you see the version of the web server running, you can go look in your master notes, say, hey, I've come across this before, I know an exploit that works for it, let's try that out real quick. I want to stop myself before I basically end up just repeating myself again, but I really want to encourage everyone that if you enjoy this, if you want to get more into it, at the end of the day, you've got to motivate yourself. There's a lot of us out here that want to encourage you, including myself. If you have a Discord account, if you don't, and you're able to, I would highly suggest you get a Discord account and join Discord servers, like good legitimate ones, all right? Try HackMe has one. Hack the Box has one. There's different ones for different groups out there. One of them that I like, that I just chill with people in, but they have a lot of knowledgeable people in there that are okay with you asking questions, is a place called Republic of Hackers. And there's another Discord server that I've been part of for a long time. If any of you have seen my earlier videos, you know I've made references to. It's called the Ruby Zoo. And basically we're a group that just enjoys hacking in general, all aspects of it. And we just hang out with each other. We're actually looking at doing more CTF competitions and kind of getting back into doing things as a group again, which we haven't done in a while. But you can find stuff like that in Discord, and it will help you grow and help you make connections. And lastly, let me know down in the comments, what did you think of this? Do you like it? Is there some things you would change, add, take away? Let me know. I'm really curious about what you have to say, and it could be valuable for other people who come across this video. So if you made it this far, I really do appreciate it. And I would ask that you subscribe or at least give this video a like. It would mean a lot and really help out the channel. We're 700 subscribers. We're getting close to 1,000, which I never thought a day in my life that this channel would get anywhere close to this. So for all of you that have joined, I really appreciate it. Thank you. And I hope I can continue making content that you enjoy and that you benefit from. With that, good luck in your CTFs. I'll see you next time.